We're less than 2 weeks away from opening day, so let's get to one of our final Mailbag Fridays before the start of the regular season. That's coming up on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can catch us on wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. And you can also find us for daily content at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So get started today over at FanDuel. And for you first-time listeners, as I always say, I'll sound like a broken record, this is the best episode to have your introduction, really, to this podcast. And we bring you 5 episodes a week. But on Fridays, it is completely tailored to the listener. Any question you ask, either on YouTube or on Twitter, I'll be sure to read it, and we will answer them over the course of this 30-minute episode. And the fun thing about this is each and every week, we are breaking records on a Mailbag Friday. About a few weeks ago, we had 30-ish questions. Today, we have over 40 questions to get to. I believe we were close to that last week. So lots of people gearing up for Royals baseball. As I said, less than 2 weeks away, and there are plenty of questions touching on a variety of things. I'm not going to be able to be as long-winded in this episode on every single question just because I won't be able to get to them all. I believe we're around 45-ish questions. So we'll see if we can get to every single one here over the course of 30 minutes, beginning with number 1, which is Brett's question. Do you see a scenario at the deadline where the Royals could package Freddie Fermin and some other players for the middle of the order bat? I just don't see a scenario in which the Royals are going to want to trade Freddie Fermin, because having Freddie Fermin allows them to DH Salvador Perez more. And until Carter Jensen's ready or Blake Mitchell's ready, I would expect Freddie Fermin to be around. I'm not sure he would get enough in return. I'm not sure the value would be there because he is a backup catcher, a good one at that. But to have your game-changing middle-of-the-order bat, it would take a little bit more than Freddie Fermin. Next one is coming all the way up here from Drew. Why not Kyle Wright? Bubic and Lynch have proven they can start. Wright has in a big way. We did have an episode on this not too long ago when it comes to Kyle Wright. He just hasn't pitched this spring, so it'll be more of a slower start to the season for him. He's got to be healthy first. Then you have to figure out if you want to try him as a starter in Omaha or out of the bullpen. Pitching out of the bullpen might be a quicker path to him getting to Kansas City, but I'm not counting on him to be a starter. Chris Bubic has the highest ceiling. Daniel Lynch has had the better numbers in spring. I'm still pretty confident, though, they're going to roll with Chris Bubic as their number 5 starter. The next one here comes from, and again, if I miss any of your guys' questions, please let me know. Drew has another one here. Could someone like Hunter Dickinson pitch at the major league level? He pitched when he was younger and has the athleticism. So a KU fan, I take it. I know we got a lot of them here in the area. I doubt it. I think he's going to stick with basketball, but it's a fun question for sure. Could he pitch? We'd have to see the velocity. I mean, being a 7'2" pitcher in the big leagues would be unheard of. And he's a lefty as well. That would add a different dynamic to it. We'll see if at some point he throws out the first pitch at Kauffman Stadium, because I've never seen him throw, but I'll take your word for it that he has pitched in high school or a long time ago at some point. Next one comes from Reese. What's next for Alec Marsh? I know his final numbers weren't amazing, but he had a couple of key starts. One I remember was a start where he shut down the Yankees during a bad stretch in June, and it felt huge at the time. Absolutely. That was during a bad stretch for the Royals. They ended up walking off that game with a Michael Garcia double. What's next for him is making sure he's 100% before he leaves Surprise. Per Annie Rogers, it appears that he is working his way back. I'm not confident he's going to make the opening day roster because we're getting close to opening day here, and he's still yet to throw in a live game. Neither has Carlos Estevez, but you're talking about a bullpen arm and a starter here. So Alec Marsh's best plan of attack is getting healthy, leaving Surprise, going to Omaha, stretching out a little bit, and then depending what the bullpen looks like or the rotation, we'll likely see him pretty soon up in Kansas City. Next one comes from Beeve. Do you think there's any chance that Ross Stripling finds a spot in KC, or is he a veteran signing for AAA like Austin Noah was catching last year? No chance in hell that Ross Stripling makes the roster. He's had a rough couple of outings in spring training, but they'll stash him away in AAA. It wouldn't surprise me down the road. Now, it'd be a bad scenario where you're having to pull with Ross Stripling down in AAA Omaha to throw innings out of the bullpen or to make a spot start. He's done it before. It just appears that his big league career is pretty much close to over at this point. There's nothing that he's done in these spring starts that indicate there's something there or something left in the tank, but no chance he makes the opening day roster. Can we see him at some point? It would take more than a few injuries in the rotation of the bullpen to see him in Kansas City. Maybe he could be a 27th man in the doubleheader game. That would happen down the road at some point. But I don't know. I'm not confident that we're going to see Ross Stripling at any point. Spoons' question could be a mailbag episode or one like this as well. But the question is Gavin Cross having a decent spring. Don't think he makes the opening day roster, but could he be the answer for the outfield this year? The big thing with Gavin Cross is not so much the offensive production. I thought it was good enough last year. It's the health. I don't know if he has been healthy enough in his big league career to be counted on, and the Royals need to see that first. He has made some adjustments at the plate over the last year and a half, and it's bettered his game. He can play all three outfield spots, so that does open up a door. And if one of those guys starts struggling and he's hitting well in AAA, you can absolutely see him at some point this year. And I would count on the Royals calling up Gavin Cross at one point. Just don't know where that spot would be, whether it be Hunter Renfroe struggling, Isbell or Melendez, one of those guys out there. But if he can stay healthy, he's absolutely going to have his chance because I believe the numbers are really starting to pop. Not only the minor league level last year, but as we've seen in spring training, which you did bring up in your question. Brian's question is, are you going to go to any Royals minor league games this year? The stadium in Columbia is really great for low A. If you do, would love to know when you go. Yeah, great question. I will be traveling a lot this coming season. We'll try to go to a couple road games for the Royals. The best chance I would have, just since I'm so far from Columbia, I would love to go see a Fireflies game and catch up on some prospects down there. My best chance to go to a game, though, would be AA Northwest Arkansas, just based off of how frequently I am down near the Northwest Arkansas area, Fayetteville and stuff. Omaha could be a chance I go up there. But Columbia, as great as that ballpark looks, don't know if I'll find myself up there, but I'll definitely let people know if I will be going to a minor league game to check on some Royals prospects down there because there are some that are worth traveling to go see coming up here in 2025. The next mailbag question we have comes from Shane. Who do you think has the upper hand in getting a bench spot between Harold Castro, Nick Lofton, Kevin Biggio, and Cam Devaney? Thank the baseball gods. Junior wasn't seriously hurt. Spring training isn't too long. They need to cut it to like a week or 10 days. And you're excited about seeing Carlos Estevez, as we all are. Hopefully that stays on track today. They are televised against the Los Angeles Angels. To that question, though, about bench players, I'm very confident Kevin Biggio is making this roster. If I was to go one step behind him, I'd go Nick Lofton, then Harold Castro, then Cam Devaney. Harold Castro, pretty cool story. Hasn't played in the big league since 2023. Plays all over. You look at the numbers that he's posted between Detroit and Colorado. A career 270-plus hitter, doesn't get on base at a very high clip. I am swinging at absolutely everything, and that's what he's done this spring, hitting over 300. He had a 2-hit game yesterday against the Padres, so he's done a lot. He's been a cool story in camp. Might see him at some point, but as for now, I would put him as Omaha depth. And maybe even AA Northwest Arkansas depth if it's too loaded up there with the Storm Chasers. But that would be the rankings I have there. Very confident Kevin Biggio makes the roster. Then Nick Lofton. I'm about 60-40 on him making the roster, with 60 being the chance he does make it. And then with the other guys, that's likely below 30%. Though they are having pretty good springs, especially Harold Castro there. Good question from Shane. Jason's question is, any concern at all with Salvi's slow offensive start? Not at all. He's a veteran. He's done this a lot. The best thing for Salvador Perez is getting the reps that he needs, staying off his feet, and being ready to go on the 27th. When you have a guy that's been around that long, I can't pay any attention to the numbers he's putting up in spring training. It hasn't been good. It's just practice for him. And if he can stay healthy leaving camp, that's all you ask for when it comes to Salvador Perez. And then lastly, I think we have only one more. Yeah, Stormy's question here on YouTube. What kind of production would Massey have to produce to make the second base job firmly his? If I may also ask, what's been the word on his back? Nothing concerning with Michael Massey. That was a last year thing, though. When I talked with him in surprise, he had said that, it's something that may or may not pop up again. It's just an injury that he's dealt with for a while. But so far in spring training, he's been phenomenal. Maybe the Royals' single best hitter in camp. And I want to say that Jonathan India still is going to be the likelier option to move around. So you could say that Michael Massey's job at second base is pretty firm right now. Not to say Jonathan India will never play second base, because I believe he will. We've just seen Jonathan India play a little bit more third base and a little bit of left field, where Massey's stuck to second base and only a few times has gone out to left field. But to have it locked down, I'm not sure he can, even with good numbers, because Matt Quatrero likes to move around a lot of pieces. So I'm not sure that Michael Massey going into 2025 is going to be the starter at second base, 90, 95% of the time. I would lean closer to 70, 75. And when he's not playing second base, he's probably DHing, or he would be in left field. Okay, let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, we have 34 questions to get to over on Twitter. Don't want to miss any of them, so stay with us. You're listening to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our first sponsor we're going to give a shout out to is FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. That's FanDuel.com. And you can go get started today. I'm a little bit nervous on my Duke pick to win the ACC tournament that I gave you guys earlier in the week, mainly because of Cooper Flagg's health. I am going to jump over to the SEC side of things. I will take the Alabama money line tonight in their matchup against Kentucky. I know I've not given you guys the best FanDuel picks before, but with the way Alabama played to close out the regular season, I feel good tonight, especially since Kentucky struggled a little bit with Oklahoma. All right, let's jump over to Twitter here, and we'll see if I can get to about 17 here and then 17 in our final segment. But beginning things with question number one, assuming that my Twitter account can load here. The first one is going to be coming from Ferguson. Do you think we should leave Kauffman Stadium? Well, I know there is a divide amongst the listeners on whether they want a stadium downtown, they want it in Kansas. What I can tell you is that Kauffman Stadium is going to play out its lease, and then that'll be the end of Kauffman Stadium. So, yes, they are going to leave, in my opinion. Where they end up, I'm not really sure, but I feel pretty confident that when that lease is up, they will be playing in a new ballpark. It's just a matter of where that ballpark is going to be. This one comes from David. How long of a leash does MJ have this season? I don't believe it's as tight as some people think it is. If he hits 140 in the first 2 months, then no, they can't continue to play him every single day. There is more than a large enough sample size. But if he gives them enough, he hits 220 with a 315, 320 OBP, that's still good enough, assuming the power is there and the walk rate's there to keep him out there nearly every single day. So the leash, I would say medium length right now. Like, he can't play poorly, but if he starts the season hot, then that leash is going to get longer and longer and longer because he's a young player with multiple years of control. Enzo's question is, has Ursig been struggling in spring training? Should we expect him to be as dominant as he was ending last season? Spring training numbers, again, when it comes to veterans, and Lucas Ursig, though he was more of a late bloomer in his big league career because he was a position player and switched over to being a pitcher, It doesn't matter to me still with the spring training numbers. As long as the velo looks good, as long as the movement on the pitches looks fine, I'm not worried about it. So, yeah, the numbers haven't been great. I'm not concerned with it. My hot take was that Lucas Ursig is going to be an all-star for the Royals in 2025. So, yes, to answer your question, I do believe he can be as dominant as he was to close it out last year. Mahomes to Kelsey's question, will Bobby be shut down for the rest of spring training? That seems a bit strong, though. The report was yesterday from Bob Fesco on 96.5 The Fan was 4 to 6 days, if I'm not mistaken, or around 6 days. And Bobby's going to want to get a few more games in before spring training. They might be gun shy, though, because he got hit by the pitch and you dodged a bullet, so you don't want to rush anything. It'll be Bobby's choice. If they go to him and say, do you feel good? You just want to rest till opening day? Then they're not going to play him. If he says, I would like to get a few more swings in after my arm is no longer sore, then they're going to let him do that. So my guess right now is Bobby's going to want to play before opening day and not have 2 or 2.5 weeks off before the start of the season. So no, I'm going to go that he's not shut down for the rest of spring. Bryce's question, will we see Cags get some reps in the outfield in the minors to accelerate his trajectory? Yes, if he hits, they'll play him in the outfield a little bit and probably in right field. Just because Hunter Renfroe's there and with MJ Melendez in left. If MJ plays well and Renfroe's struggling and Cags is hitting well, that's where you will see him get some reps down in AA Northwest Arkansas and then proceeding up to AAA Omaha. Jeremy's question is, this isn't a question, but I think you should start an MLB show channel, and it's just you playing Road to the Show or Diamond Dynasty. What do you think about that? Well, I will be purchasing the game today, actually. I'm more of a franchise guy. I like to play against the computer because I'm just simply not as good at the higher levels of Diamond Dynasty. But I'll think about it for sure. Maybe live stream some of it if I get good enough, or if I'm so bad it would be comical to watch it. But I do love it because I love MLB The Show, and I will be buying it today. Ryan's question, status on Bobby Witt Jr. Yeah, just touched on it a little bit there. Not overly concerned. Just has a contusion, a forearm contusion, I believe it was called. So a bad bruise. He'll be good to go for opening day. It comes down to, will he play a few games before spring training? My guess will be yes. Just comes down to what Bobby Witt Jr. wants to do. Andrew's question from my son, why did Salvi and Bobby choose their uniform numbers? That's a good question, and I wish I did have a firm answer for you. Bobby was number 7 pretty much his entire minor league career, I think it was, or maybe he changed to 7 right before he got called up to the big league. Salvi, he's always rep number 13. Maybe it's not that deep because I haven't heard any stories as to why they picked him. That'll be another question I ask at some point this year. So for your son, I apologize. I'll try to get to the bottom of that and know. It might be as simple as that was the number that was available, or it was a number they had growing up playing all the time. I do have a buddy that played against Bobby Witt Jr. in high school. I'll have to ask him if he was number 7 or if he was 17. It might have been 17 now that I think about it. I don't want to give you a wrong answer. So for now, I'll tell you that is TBD, and I will try to figure out that before the end of the season. Great question, though. Love the question coming from your son. Craig's question is, what's your opinion on the MLB's new automated ball strike challenge system? I don't hate it because it's quick. It seems in spring training when they challenge the call, you get an answer shortly after that. If it was a review system like they have with safe and out calls, I would hate it. I don't want the game to take that long. Maybe it'll matter late in the game when you don't want to have a poor strike call or a ball called impact the rest of the game. In the first and second inning, it's a bit strong to me. Maybe it should be something where, hey, late in the game, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, you get one challenge on it. And if you're right, you can keep it. If you're wrong, you're done for the rest of the game. And that puts pressure on the hitter if they truly do believe that ball was in the zone or it was out of the zone. But I don't hate it just because it's quick. I just don't want it to be an every inning thing where we're constantly having to review that. Brother Cag's question, who is in our lineup that can hit 20-plus dingers? I think we got to get 3+ that can reach that. Bobby will, Vinny will, Savvy will. You want to have the upside, MJ Melendez could. Michael Massey with a fully healthy season could. He's ran into 15, 16, and 17 before. He's got that type of power. But those other 3 are the safer bets to running into 20-plus home runs this season. Paul's question, do you feel the Royals will add more depth in the lineup on offense? They're clearly still looking for somebody, and the fact that that final bench spot is up for grabs makes me believe they want to add somebody. They're just not going to give Adam Duvall the $3 million that he wants. If he comes down to $1 million, that would be a move I can totally understand. With Alex Verdugo, clearly he's wanting too much money or too many years on a deal. That feels unlikely, and the Royals aren't going to start him anyway. But yeah, I do believe they'll add some depth on offense. They're running out of time, though, to do it, or maybe they'd want to do it at the beginning of the regular season. Just feels unlikely to me. But they're looking. We'll see if a move happens. All right, let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll wrap it up with our final set of questions next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our final sponsor of the day is Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for half off on your first year. So go get started today with Monarch Money. Our final set of Mailbag Friday questions is going to begin with Jerry. 3 of our top 10 prospects are catchers. If we needed to make a trade midseason, would one of these and maybe a top 30 arm be enough to get us a power bat? If so, which of those catchers do you think they would be willing to trade? Well, the 3 you have are Carter Jensen, Blake Mitchell, Ramon Ramirez. I can tell you that if they were to trade one, it would be Ramon Ramirez. He's more of a lottery ticket guy. Numbers were great, pre-low A ball. If he does start progressing well enough at those lower levels, his trade value increases. And as for a pitcher, yeah, you could throw one in and get some depth. My thing is this. If you get to the deadline and Jack Caglione's ready, do you need to pull off a trade for a middle-of-the-order bat? Because he could be that answer. And, you just don't want to deplete the minor league system if you're not getting the exact guy you feel is going to take you over the hump. In my opinion, it's not like last year where you're just making moves to strengthen the depth and, you can give up one prospect here and one prospect here. If you are in first place, you're 20 games over 500, and you feel this could be a World Series year, then, yeah, pull that trade off. If you feel the pieces are in place and you want to stick with your guns and maybe add another depth piece or two, I'm fine with that because I still want the Royals to have a strong minor league system. Would a deal work out? It depends on the player. I just feel it's more likely that Jack Caglione can be that middle-of-the-order bat rather than somebody out there another team would be willing to move on from. Connor's question is, who do you see making the back end of the roster, specifically on the position player side? Well, I got Freddie Freeman and Kevin Biggio almost at locks at this point. Joey Weimer, Nick Lofton, Nelson Velasquez, Nick Prado, those guys are all fighting for that last spot. I'll throw Harold Castro in there as well. My gut tells me Nick Lofton will make the roster, and then Nick Prado or Nelson Velasquez would be that guy because they're out of options. So I'll answer with that. Nick Lofton, because of the versatility, he was up last year for a chunk of time, and then for the guys out of options, Velasquez has been awful in spring training. So is Nick Prado. I could just see them sticking with a homegrown guy and a former first-round pick over Velasquez, who they got for Jose Cuas 2 years ago. Gary's question is, I was just wondering if you had a favorite player that didn't work out, that was drafted or signed. Mine is Justin Maxwell. I was there when he hit the walk-off grand slam versus Texas. Thought he was going to be a stud. For so long, it was Jorge Soler, and then Jorge Soler had a 48 home run season. So can I say him? I feel I can, because other than that year, he was either injured or he was not good at all. You got that one great year and you traded Wade Davis to go out there and get him. I was hoping that Jorge Soler was going to be the 35, 40 home run guy every year he was in Kansas City, and it just didn't work out that well. He did give us 2019, and that was phenomenal. I just always wish that you got a lot more from Jorge Soler. Next one is going to be coming from Comedic Gamble. With the knowledge of how free agency ended up playing out, do you think the Royals regret not landing Jock Peterson? Fair question. I thought Jock Peterson would be a great platoon bat, and maybe they were interested. It seemed that Santander, Jerkson, Profar, Randall Grichuk, those guys were more of interest to them. Jock Peterson not being able to play the field at all drove them away. They don't have interest in guys that just can't play the field at all. So I would say maybe some regret, but they were not willing to meet that asking price. It seems their focus all offseason has been, here's what we're willing to offer. You can take it or leave it. We are not going to cave in to what you are wanting out there, especially if you're not going to be able to play the field. Kevin asks, what do you think on, or who do you think on the current Major League roster makes the biggest jump in performance this year? My breakout candidate was Michael Massey. He's had a phenomenal spring. Defensively, he's great. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be my guy to make the biggest jump. Cole Reagan's mustache asked, what does Gavin Cross' path to the majors look like? I feel like a lot of folks have written him off, but he's finally healthy and having a great spring. His path is going to be staying healthy, as we said, continuing to hit well, and then right field or left field is going to have to open up due to injury or a player not playing well. And the only guy that would be in danger of being let go for not playing well would be Hunter Renfroe because his contract's up after this year. But I ask Royals fans, if that's happening, if Hunter Renfroe's struggling, do you want to see Gavin Cross up there? Would you rather them put their attention on Jack Caglione to move him over to right field and he be the first guy that comes up? Because neither one of them, I believe, will be up in the first month or two of the season. It would likely be a second half call up or maybe at the earliest late June. But that would be his path: healthy, hitting well, and somebody just not performing at one of the corner outfield spots. King Kong's question, when is Cross in right field or left field? Yeah, I'll go second half of the season. I believe he'll get an opportunity if he stays healthy. And there will be chances to get at bats because I just don't see both of the corner outfield spots being solved in 2025. Maul Santa's question, given that almost every Royals starter set his personal best in innings pitched last season and the Royals are starting pitching rich this year, would Q ever consider going with a six-man rotation or limiting starters to 5 innings per start? The only way I would see him going to a six-man rotation is if a Seth Lugo or Michael Wacha or Michael Lorenzen is just gassed by the deadline, which I don't see happening. In September, if guys are struggling, yes, I could see a scenario in which you have your 5 and then Daniel Lynch or Alec Marsh or Noah Cameron is that 6th guy just to give each starter one extra day of rest. Jason's question, Tyler Gentry was hitting very well this spring. Why do you think the Royals sent him down? It goes back to a point I made a few weeks ago where they need to see it in Omaha. Spring training numbers are just not going to do enough for them. It's why Jack Caglione is going to start at the minor league level. It's why Gavin Cross is going to start at the minor league level. They're going to go with a veteran who is proven at the big leagues. Even if they had a bad last season, they're going to go with the veteran who's been up in the big leagues for a few years. Tyler Gentry's not ready to take an everyday spot. And for a bench role, you need Tyler Gentry to progress well. Everyday bats in Omaha is probably more valuable than him sitting the bench and playing once every week and a half in the Royals lineup. Royals reports question, what do you see the starting rotation looking like? Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Michael Lorenzen, and then Chris Bubich. Chris asked, what do you make of Salvi's slow spring? He's a veteran, just got to stay in shape, get some swings in, get some work behind the plate, and that's all he needs to focus on. He could go 0 for 50 in spring training, and it doesn't impact how I feel about Salvador Perez. At this point in his career, it is all about health. Future Dude asks, now that Alex Gordon is getting inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame, do you think he'll get what so many think he should, his number retired and a statue? What's funny is I'm probably going to lean more so statue than number retired. The 3 that are retired, as we know, in Kansas City, 5, 10, and 20, they're not going to just retire guys because they were beloved by fans. In fact, I would go as far to say that Salvador Perez has a much better chance to have his number retired as a Royal, and he likely will because he's going to spend his entire career as a Kansas City Royal. Alex Gordon did as well, and he was as beloved as Salvador Perez. But from that core that won the World Series, I don't see them retiring 2. I see them only retiring 1. And since Salvi continues to stay through it and probably going to have 2 to 3 more years in Kansas City before he calls it quits, I would lean towards Salvador Perez. But the statue, him rounding first base after the Game 1 World Series, that to me is what is going to go up at some point at Kauffman Stadium. Not, the main attraction to Kauffman Stadium, but I could see it being where, Frank White's statue is, or George Brett's statue. I could see that happening because it was such an iconic moment in Royals franchise history. This one comes from Chris. As Gavin Cross and Cags emerge, does Renfroe get DFA'd before spring training is over, or early May to make room? It would have to be a very poor start to the year for Hunter Renfroe to get DFA'd in May. He's not getting DFA'd before the start of spring training. They want to see Cross and Cags go down and hit well at the respective levels, and then you could maybe start thinking about a move like that in June, and probably more so in late June. Cody's question, with all the hype videos about next member of the Royals Hall of Fame, who do you think it is? Well, unfortunately, since this was asked yesterday, can't fault you at all, Cody, for asking this. It was Alex Gordon. He is the newest member of the Royals Hall of Fame. But you do have one more question here. When Jack gets to the big leagues, could he be the guy they throw in up 10, down 10 as their position player pitching, or is it not worth it to even risk an arm injury? I'm going to go with the latter here. If you're up 10, down 10, there's no need to throw Jack Caglione in there, even though we all know he can pitch. You can say this, that if he goes out there and got hurt, well, if it was an arm injury, he still can hit. That's what happened with Shohei Ohtani, right? He had the Tommy John surgery, didn't pitch, was just a full-time DH. The Royals are going to want him to play the field, though. That's another part to this. So I don't think it would be worth it. We know he can throw 99. Right? It'd be cool to see a position player do that. I'd much rather have somebody go out there that doesn't pitch at all, Nick Lofton or a Kevin Biggio, lob the ball up there and get out of the inning. Hopefully there's not many times this year where they're having to do that, down by 10 to 15 runs in a big league game. Royals dated dugout asks, think Kevin Biggio and Lofton could both make the roster at the expense of an outfielder. Not one of the three starters, not Isbel, Renfroe, or Melendez, but yes, if Nick Lofton and Biggio make it, that pushes Joey Weimer out. That could push Nelson Velasquez out or Nick Prado out. It all comes down to, if they add another bat here in free agency, if they add Adam Duvall, that would be the move that pushes out one of those outfielders. All right, that's going to do it for another Mailbag Friday here on Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, find Locked On MLB as baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You enjoy the weekend, Kansas City. We are under 2 weeks away till spring training. Next Friday will be the final Mailbag Friday of the offseason. Then we'll have Royals baseball the following week. But until Monday, you take it easy, Kansas City.